only thing we have to fear is
in war.
fear itself.
There is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Thanks for joining us today. You can visit us online at wallbuilders.com and wallbuilderslive.com. In our program, we try to address the issues of the day from both a biblical and a historical point of view. David, we usually talk about the right application of biblical perspective and historical perspective to things, and how to do these things. We don't often talk about the wrong way to do them, and in most professions we call that malpractice, when somebody does it exactly the wrong way. In fact, to the point that sometimes you lose your license. Well, education is a big topic for our program, and sometimes there's even malpractice in education.
Yeah, there's about 5 different forms of historical malpractice that are out there in education, and they're very common, and I find them as I'm appointed by state boards of education in states to help do their social studies standards. I find these very common among teachers and educators. And there are things like post-structuralism, treating people as groups rather than individuals. One of the states said, make sure you identify the group from which that contributor comes. And we said, no. It doesn't matter whether they're from a group or not. If somebody did something significant in American history, we're going to point it out. And they said, well, you put them in groups, and that way we make sure minorities are represented. Well, they want it in groups, post-structuralism, and when they did that, only 9% of all the heroes presented in the textbook were minorities. When we said, no, we're doing it on the basis of individuals, not groups, it went to 27% were minorities. We weren't caring that it was minority or not. We just said, if you do something significant, let's put it in there. And so that's post-structuralism. We don't know if you did anything good or not because we're not sure what group you're from. That's a real malpractice. You look at individuals. You also have things like academic collectivism. We've covered that on this program before. If 15 PhDs get together and declare something as truth, then it's truth because they're all PhDs and they know what they're talking about, and they've all talked to each other about it. That doesn't mean that it's truth at all. The example I gave was the book, an academic book I wrote with 3 PhDs, and they all said, oh, Jefferson was secular because the University of Virginia had no chaplain. And that proves that Jefferson, who started the University of Virginia, had it secular. And so I just walked over to the shelves in the library and pulled out newspaper ads where the University of Virginia was running ads recruiting students to come to the brand new school. And the ads were written by the chaplain of the university. And they all said, oh, that can't be. They didn't have a chaplain. I said, well, then what do you do with these newspapers from back to the founding of the university? And so that's academic collectivism. One of the things that's also out there is deconstructionism, or what's called negativism, where that we will make sure we tell every kid what's wrong with America and not what's right with America. We had Ken Mercer on not long ago, and he's with the Texas Board of Education, but looking at what's happening with the AP testing in history. 460,000 kids will get AP testing in history, and this is done by the College Board, which is moving in the Common Core direction. And 95 pages of content that teachers have to teach for this test. And that content has all the negatives about America. It doesn't have the good things that happened from World War II. It talks about that America dropped an atomic weapon on Japan, which called into world question the bad morals of America. So we'll point that out. We won't point out how many, literally hundreds of thousands of lives were saved. The American projections was we would lose 1 million Americans on the ground, and the Japanese would lose multiple times more than that if we did an inland invasion. So we dropped the bomb. 150,000 are killed as a result of the bomb hitting. That's 150,000 killed, but that's probably 3 million less than what it would have been. But our morals are called into question. And so that's why people who have gone through American education in the last 30 years go across the world apologizing for America because of this negativism. And this is exactly what Dinesh D'Souza took on in that movie, America. He said, this is what you're hearing in school, and here's the guys saying it themselves. By the way, here's the rest of the story that you never get. And just from even people in office having seen the rest of the story that is not out there, it has so impacted them and how they think about America that it's actually costing some of them to propose legislation on this.
Well, Alan Hayes is a state senator in Florida that I'm thinking, David, may be starting a prairie fire here. This might be something that gets spread all across the nation. Senator Alan Hayes, our guest, when we return right here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Around 1790, the infamous Thomas Paine wrote his Age of Reason, attacking religion and Christianity. Interestingly, one of the strongest defenders against Paine's attack was Benjamin Franklin. In fact, he stiffly rebuked Paine and told him, "He that spits in the wind spits in his own face." Do you imagine any good would be done by this attack against religion? Think how great a portion of mankind consists of youth who have need of the motives of religion to restrain them from vice, to support their virtue. I would advise you not to attempt unchaining the tiger, but to burn this piece before it is seen by any other person. If men are so wicked with religion, what would they be if without it? Benjamin Franklin believed that the practice of religion was one of the greatest assets of American society.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Thanks for staying with us. Our good friend, State Senator Alan Hayes from Florida is with us. Senator, always good to have you, sir.
Thank you, Rick. It's great to be with you again.
Hey, I am thrilled with what I read that you are looking at doing with regard to students in Florida, getting some good information. Before we get to exactly what you're doing, tell me what you thought of Dinesh D'Souza's movie, America.
I was, candidly, as in the beginning of the movie, I was thinking, good grief, where is this fella going? And then as the movie progressed, I thought, wow, what an effective way to show a myth and then debunk it. And he did it 6 or 7 times right there in the same movie. And I walked out thinking, and I even commented to my wife, I said, you know, sweetheart, every high school student in America should see that film. That needs to be shown. And we drove on down the road and talked about other things and everything. And then the next day, I had a good look in the mirror, and I said, okay, Alan, are you going to just talk about it, or are you going to do something about it? And the answer was, I'm going to do something about it. At least I'm going to try. And so that's where we are right now. I have the language already put together for the bill, and I'm seeking as a matter of fact, I have found already, just this week, a sponsor for the legislation in the House of Representatives. So we're going to file the bill and see if we can't get it passed this coming session.
Lots to talk about with regard to why it's important for students to see this. It sounds like you had the same concern at the beginning of the movie as I did. I was really surprised, and I asked Dinesh about this when I interviewed him, that he basically gave the opposition a full tilt. I mean, he let them go, as he put it, full throttle with their accusations against America. Didn't censor or edit out their worst things they could say about America. And I'm watching that going, why are you giving these guys a platform? But he said, because then I was able to take what they said and turn it on them and absolutely decimate their arguments, which he did. So I was glad to see that, because you don't usually get both sides, just with their best arguments. Were you impressed by that once he got to the explaining how they were wrong?
Oh, absolutely I was. And it, after the first myth being debunked, then I could feel myself building anticipation for each of the others coming on. And I think that approach, giving both sides of the story, it lends overwhelming credibility to the movie.
Yeah.
I think that it is important for our students to learn how to think instead of learning what to think. And otherwise, what they're teaching in school becomes nothing but a bunch of dogma. And we don't need more dogma. We need intellectual people that can look at a challenge intellectually and exchange ideas on it, talk about it, and then reach their own conclusions. And I think this would be an outstanding instructional material for that type of setting.
Yeah, it seems like, for the past 20 years or so, maybe even longer, that all students have gotten are those accusations against America and not the response, not the other side, not the full picture and the full story as Dinesh does in the movie. So it has been like dogma because they've just gotten those accusations with no way to really reason through those accusations with the facts, and that's what we get in the movie.
I totally agree. And Rick, you know as well as I do, over the years, there have been hundreds of thousands of Americans who have given their lives on foreign soil to defend freedom here in America and around the world. And we owe it to them to protect that freedom. It's our obligation to keep that freedom going. And this movie, I think, can play a very important role in that. Otherwise, we will continue to see the fabric of our nation just eroded and eroded further and further away. And that needs to be stopped.
It came across to me as really a defense of the American spirit and the American dream and the principles that were put in place. He doesn't at all apologize for people and depraved nature. I mean, he says, look, we're flawed just like anybody else. But when you take our principles and our foundation, it has allowed for us to right the wrongs in such a better way than any other nation in the history of the world. So it's not a sugar-coated Pollyanna kind of just wave the flag and say we're good kind of movie. It's, hey, here's the facts, here's what happened, here's the truth. Put it in the context of the entire world and not in this microcosm that usually the naysayers try to use.
I totally agree, and of course that brings up the question, if America were indeed such a horrible place, filled with such evil, wicked ideas as some people would have you believe, why are so many millions yearning to come to America?
Yeah.
That's the case, and you and I both know that this nation is an exceptional nation, and we need not apologize to anyone for that exceptionalism.
Amen. Amen. So your idea is to take then this movie that does such a great job of showing both sides and giving students an opportunity to think intellectually about these major issues, and just put it in front of them, get it into the classroom so that they can have an opportunity to get all that information and then reason for themselves.
That's exactly right. And the only students that will be excused are those whose parents send a note to the schools saying, please excuse my student from the viewing of that movie.
Very, very quick break. When we come back, let's talk about how this type of thing gets implemented, what's the cost to the taxpayers, if there is any, and what the timeline is for a bill like this, when you would bring it, when you think you would see it in the classroom, should it pass. Our guest today, Alan Hayes, state senator from Florida. Stay with us here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Although education has remained an emphasis in America for nearly 200 years, what has changed the most over that period of time is the philosophy of education. For example, while religion finds no place of refuge in our schools today, such was not the case at the time of our founding fathers. In fact, when the Delaware Indian chiefs brought their youths to be trained in America's schools, on June the 12th, 1779, George Washington told them, "You do well to wish to learn our arts and our way of life, and above all, the religion of Jesus Christ. These will make you a greater and happier people than you are. Congress will do everything they can to assist you in this wise intention." According to George Washington, what students learned above all in American education at the time of the Founding Fathers was the religion of Jesus Christ.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. State Senator Alan Hayes with us from the great state of Florida, talking about Dinesh D'Souza's movie America. and the possibility of actually having it shown in schools. It's a great historical lesson, tells both sides of the story, and really educates on these issues that have really been lopsided, one-sided for too long in our classrooms, especially on college campuses. Senator, this would be in, I'm assuming, secondary education or K through 12, whichever grades you're aiming for, not college, but it would give them a more information before they hit those college classrooms. Is that important to get this both sides to them before they get to a classroom where a professor is going to typically across the country give that dogma and that one-sided perception?
I think it's critically important, Rick, and my bill will require it to be shown to the 8th graders and to the 11th graders each year in the state of Florida, in public schools, private schools, charter schools. All 8th graders and all 11th graders in the state of Florida will be shown the movie unless the parents send a note opting out of the viewing.
Well, I mentioned before we went to break costs. What's the, some people typically say when a legislator wants something mandated to be in the classroom, which I think it's an appropriate role for the state legislature to say, this is what we want kids to learn in our state. Some people don't. I think that's exactly what you should be doing as a legislator. But when you do that, they'll say, well, but it's going to cost money, or it's going to, take this out of the hands of the teacher. How do you respond to those things?
Well, quite the contrary. I don't think it's going to take it out of the hands of the teacher. I think it's going to put in the hands of the teachers a very valuable teaching resource. And the beauty of it is we're going to have the DVDs donated, so it's not going to cost the taxpayers of Florida one nickel.
Excellent. So no cost, gives the teacher an opportunity to have a great tool. I mean, the quality is phenomenal. I don't know about you, Senator, but I remember the movies I watched in world history class or whatever, and they were typically on a little spool film thing, and you had to, you know what I'm talking about. Our younger listeners have no idea, but I remember the hearing the click, 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 click. Anyway, so this is high quality stuff. I mean, this thing is entertaining. It's got good music. It's got the whole 9 yards. So it'll keep the kids' attention, but then also teach them good information. I agree with you. This is actually a great tool to give to these teachers. Yeah, absolutely it is. And with our session being held in the spring next year, I would expect that it'll be in the fall of 2015 when the movie will begin to be shown. We'll put an effective date on it for probably July the 1st of 2015, and we'll be already, as a matter of fact, have already begun the process of securing the donations of the DVDs to go to the schools. We only here in Florida we only have about 1,700 middle schools and high schools, so it's not a tremendous financial undertaking. How's the response so far? Have you talked to many of your colleagues or even folks back home in the district? How are people responding to the idea?
It's a mixed bag. It's garnered some publicity down here in some of the print media. One of the TV stations did an interview with me. As you can imagine, I've gotten some highly, highly supportive emails, and I've had some incendiary emails as well. But, I had a real interesting email exchange with one of the teachers who is beginning her 13th year of teaching American government and history. And she, of course, chastised me severely for even thinking of such an absurd idea. And I just wrote very simply one question back to her. I said, have you seen the movie? And her reply was, no, I will not waste my money nor my time seeing such blah, blah,
But so I'll lambast it without seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said to her, I said, my wife and I are going this week to see it again, and we'll be happy to bring you and a guest as our guest. And what I really wanted to ask, and I would ask any of these folks, I said, what are you afraid of in viewing this movie? Why don't you go see the movie yourself instead of taking the word of someone else?
Yeah.
And I'm going to provide a viewing of this movie for my legislative colleagues when we go to Tallahassee this fall. So it's not like I'm asking them to take my word for it and vote to make it mandatory in all our classes without them having seen the movie themselves. I'm going to give them an opportunity to see the movie.
And wouldn't a teacher, if they disagree with the movie, they have the classroom the whole year, right? I mean, they can show the movie and then talk about what they like or don't like. It's just, again, getting the information in front of the student and letting the student think about what's happened.
That's the whole point, Rick. You get it exactly.
Well, I think it's a great idea, Senator. I hope you can get it passed there in Florida, and I hope it catches on and spreads across the country, and we get others to do the same thing. It's you and I, we've talked about this before, even on the air, just the need to have an educated populace, a citizenry that understands what makes America different and why our values have created the greatest nation in history, and what happens in those classrooms has a huge impact on the next generation and our future. So appreciate you paying attention to that and seeing a great opportunity to help to solidify that foundation with our kiddos. Keep up the great work, Senator.
Thank you, Rick. I'm glad to do it, and I hope it catches, and legislators all across the country call me and say, hey, Alan, will you share the language of the bill? And the answer is absolutely. We'd be happy to share it with anybody that can make it happen in other states.
Well, speaking of that, because we have a lot of legislators around the country that listen and constituents as well, and folks listening right now, you can take this idea to your state legislator, and you would want to do that soon because it'll help set it up for these spring sessions across the country and give them time to get to working on the bill. Alan, how can legislators or people that are listening, they just want to take the bill to their legislator, how can they reach you or get on your website and see a copy of the bill?
They can call my office, which is 352-742-6441, or they can email me. Really the simplest, easiest way to do it is to go to the website, flsenate.gov.
Excellent.
flsenate.gov, and then find my name, and it'll show you how to contact me there, and you can send me an email with that website.
We'll jump on there, find that link, and make it easy for you folks. If you go to wallbuilderslive.com today, we'll put that phone number and the link to Senator Hayes' office. I hadn't even thought about this, but until now. So this would be a great action item for our listeners to get this started across the country. Don't wait for your legislators back home to come up with the idea. Take Senator Hayes' idea and put it in the hands of your legislature. I can promise you from experience, they're looking for opportunities, and they're looking for good ideas and good legislation that they can pass next spring. This is a great one that you could share with them. Senator Hayes, God bless you, brother. Thanks for coming on today.
All right. Thank you, Rick.
Back in a moment with David Barton. Have you ever wanted to learn more about the United States Constitution but just felt like, man, the classes are boring, or it's just that old language from 200 years ago, or I don't know where to start? People want to know, but it gets frustrating because you don't know where to look for truth about the Constitution either. Well, we've got a special program for you available now called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green, and it's actually a teaching done on the Constitution at Independence Hall in the very room where the Constitution was framed. We take you both to Philadelphia, the cradle of liberty, and Independence Hall, and to the WallBuilders Library, where David Barton brings the history to life to teach the original intent of our founding fathers. We call it the Quick Start Guide to the Constitution because in just a few hours through these videos, you will learn the Citizen's Guide to America's Constitution. You'll learn what you need to do to help save our constitutional republic. It's fun, it's entertaining, and it's going to inspire you to do your part to preserve freedom for future generations. It's called Constitution Alive with David Barton and Rick Green. You can find out more information on our website now at wallbuilders.com.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Thanks to Senator Alan Hayes and his efforts in Florida to help teach young people the truth about America. So, David, what do you think? I mean, if a movie like this was shown, it would probably foster some great discussion in the classroom.
Well, it would foster discussion, but the problem is exactly what Alan was talking about, that email he got from a teacher. There's no way I'm going to show this. Have you seen it? No, but there's no way I'm going to show yeah. You know, that's the open-mindedness that we're having to fight in classrooms right now. You know, if you were on the other side, if you were one of those professors that Dinesh interviewed, you could still show the movie and say, yeah, you know, but Dinesh was wrong because this. It doesn't matter what side you're on. You've now presented both sides, and you can weigh in how you want to on it. But why in the world are you scared of letting kids get both sides? I love what Alan said is we don't need more dogma in schools. We need intellectual people who can look at a challenge and exchange ideas and talk about it and reach conclusions. Yeah, that would be really nice. And by the way, that is one of the problems with Common Core, is it's more into indoctrination than it is information. So I think what Alan's got here is how do I want to say this? It's a lucid idea, which may mean that it won't go anywhere with the educrats, but I think it will catch on with legislators, and I think it will catch on with parents and with average people. It won't catch on with the professionals, but it will catch on with the rest of the world.
And maybe they can, push it over the edge. I mean, sometimes you have to almost force a major change like this. We got to do something to break the monopolies indoctrination.
Well, let me tell you, bro, that what's gone with Common Core in the last year, the opposition to Common Core has doubled and support has plummeted. And that's because of the grassroots. There's no national organization leading the charge against this. The educrats still are for it. They think it's great. All the educational professionals, and it's losing ground because the people are standing up and weighing in. And that's what will cause things like Alan's bill to say, hey, just show this. This is deconstruction. Let's expose deconstructionism. And by the way, deconstruction is where you take the exception and make it look like the rule. Well, let's get the other side of the story out there. Let's put the rest of it out there. All that is pursuing truth, and that should be a good thing to do in education, but it's so out of favor today. But again, the grassroots can make this happen, and we've got a lot of legislators at least, and hopefully they'll contact Alan and do the same thing. It's at least worth having the discussion in legislatures about this.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening today, folks. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand under